Moms on Mike's Mother's Day contest. Is there a mom in your life who truly inspires you? A mom who has overcome challenges and obstacles while still showing up every day with love and strength. Maybe your own mom went above and beyond in ways you'll never forget. We want to hear her story. Send us your nominations and we'll share them on our special Mother's Day episode. After hearing these incredible stories, our listeners will vote for the mom they feel deserves to win a $100 gift card to a local restaurant. Let's celebrate the amazing moms in our community. We can't wait to read your stories. All entries must be submitted by April 25th, 2026. Send your entries to us via email, momsonmikes@gmail.com, or through our Facebook page at Moms on Mikes, or Instagram at Moms on Mikes Podcast. Hello and welcome to Moms on Mikes. I'm Joanne.
I'm Cash.
And I'm Sophia.
We are going to start doing a series of episodes on the West Memphis 3. So some of these are going to be pretty heavy. Some of them are going to be pretty detailed and gruesome and graphic. So just a heads up for that. But it's a fantastic case. And even though it's an older case, it's from 93, it's definitely something worth listening to and learning about. I will say, if you already have an opinion on the case, try and put that aside because you're going to hear a lot of information that you may not have heard before. In 1993, West Memphis, Arkansas was a small, conservative, and tight-knit community where children played outside and rode bikes until dark. The dense, swampy landscape of the Mississippi River Delta and untamed woods was a stark contrast between suburban development and industrial sites. West Memphis was a busy transportation hub. The wooded area known as Robin Hood Hills was thick with vines, weeds, and trees that stood up to 30 feet high. In May of 1993, the foliage was in full bloom, creating a heavy green canopy that made the woods feel dark and secluded, even during the day. The woods is where all the kids wanted to hang out. This was 1993, before cell phones and the internet ruined the imagination of kids. When kids built forts, explored the woods like they were on an exhibition to discover new land, their imaginations ran wild. The Robin Hood Hills was a common yet often forbidden playing spot for children in the neighborhood. But kids will be kids, and on May 5th, 1993, that's exactly where Christopher Byers, Michael Moore, and Stevie Branch wanted to play. This episode, we are talking about Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelly, also known as the West Memphis 3. The 3 teenage boys from West Memphis, Arkansas, accused of murdering 3 8-year-old boys, Christopher Byers, Michael Moore, and Stevie Branch, on May 5th, 1993. The trial of the West Memphis 3 included assertions that the killings were part of a cultic ritual, and subsequent conviction set off a firestorm around the world, inspired books and movies, and led to a movement to retry or free the 3. Believed by many to have been wrongly convicted. The movement included Johnny Depp, Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder, Peter Jackson, Natalie Maines from the Dixie Chicks, Henry Rollins, Patti Smith, Jack Black, and Winona Ryder. The case was covered in the documentary Paradise Lost and became many people's first look into true crime.
In 1993, West Memphis, Arkansas was a conservative city of approximately 28,000 residents, heavily influenced by the Bible Belt culture and reliant on industries like Southland Greyhound Park. It was very much a blue-collar community, people with low income and individuals experiencing poverty. The town was right on the interstate I-40, which runs from California, and I-55, which runs from Chicago to New Orleans. It's also right on the Mississippi River. Being right on the interstates often attract drugs and transients, and many were seen around the truck wash that was on the outskirts of the woods. The woods were not much bigger than a football field, and they were all that separated the interstate and the Blue Beacon truck wash from the neighborhood the boys lived in. Parts of the wooded area, specifically the northern section, were sometimes referred to by locals as the Blue Beacon Woods due to their proximity to the truck wash. The area consisted of a wooded area, a diversion canal called 10 Mile Bayou, That was a drainage ditch that ran north to south, ran through the woods with a pipe bridge across it. Near the bridge was a dirt pile or small mound that locals had dubbed Turtle Hill. From the canal were little ditches that only filled when it rained, which it had done the weeks leading up to May 5th. Close by the Mayfair Apartments on West E.H. Crump Cat Street were low-income housing situated immediately adjacent to the woods. The three boys, like the other neighborhood children, loved to play in the woods, especially at the forbidden area the kids called Devil's Den, where rumors of satanic rituals took place. Devil's Den was the local nickname for specific secluded areas of wood and drainage ditches located directly behind the old Blue Beacon truck wash. The woods were not that big, but it was filled with excitement. Kids rode their bikes to the pipe bridge, then walked across. The creek had snapping turtles that kids were told not to touch them because they would bite your fingers off. There were snakes, raccoons, white-tailed deer, bugs, coyotes, even wild pigs and wild dogs that lived in the area also. On the afternoon of May 5th, 1993, Christopher Byers, Michael Moore, and Stevie Branch rushed home from school, enjoying the afternoon as an 8-year-old boys do. They rode their bikes around the neighborhood, eventually going into the woods. They left their bikes at the pipe bridge, going further into the woods to Turtle Hill and to the place the kids called Devil's Den. Michael had talked about having a secret hideout in the woods, so this was somewhere they had been many times before. Unfortunately, this time would be their last. The three boys would be murdered that night in the woods, and the police would charge 3 local teenagers with the crimes: Jessie Misskelly, Jason Baldwin, and Damien Echols, known as the West Memphis Three. All 3 would be convicted of the murders, but there is much doubt about their conviction, and after 18 years and 78 days, they would be released on an Alford plea. There are a lot of characters in this case, so we will give you a brief overview of each of them. Then we will go deeper into Damien Echols. He was the prime suspect, the one that police department focused on, not only from the very beginning of this case, but even before the murders.
Damien Echols is most well known when it comes to this case, and we will look deeper into Damien later. In 1993, he was just a teenager. He wore black clothes, liked heavy metal music, and alternative religion. Because West Memphis was part of the Bible Belt, many people saw Damien differently, and he definitely stood out. He had struggled with mental illness and violent incidents, and was already known to police, so when the murders happened, the police thought of him first. Jason Baldwin was Damien's best friend. Jason had a minor criminal record, he was from a broken home, and at the time of the murders, he was still in school. Because he was Damien's best friend, the police basically assumed if Damien was involved, so was Jason. Jessie Misskelly was also from a broken home. He had what was described as a mild intellectual disability, but he actually had a measured IQ of 72, which is considered to be borderline intellectually disabled. He had dropped out of high school and functioned at the education level of a 4th grader. He was an aspiring professional wrestler, and he did odd jobs to help out at home. He was known to Jason and Damien, but is disputed whether he was actually friends with them. Damien at one point would say 2 things that I don't have time for: stupidity and ugliness. And Jessie Misskelly had both of these qualities. Jason Baldwin, however, would refer to Damien and Jessie as his 2 best friends, but that was in an interview in 2012, so it's possible that they became close during what they went through. Dominique Tier was Damien's girlfriend. She was 16 at the time, and during the trial was pregnant with his child. They spent a lot of time together, often sleeping at each other's houses almost every night. Steve Branch was the son of Pamela Hobbs and his stepfather, Terry Hobbs. Stevie, just like the other boys, was 8 years old at the time of his murder. He was a typical 8-year-old. He was an honor student. He liked to sing and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He had a 4-year-old half-sister, Amanda. Christopher Byers was the son of Melissa Defer and Ricky Murray. His mom remarried and became Melissa Byers, and his stepfather, John Mark Byers, adopted him. Christopher was rambunctious. He broke rules, often going to Robin Hood Hills and playing in the woods. So much so, he would hide his muddy clothes under his bed. According to his mom, he still believed in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus. He had a stepbrother, Sean Ryan Clark, aged 13. Michael Moore was the son of Dana Moore and Todd Moore. He was the leader of the group. They were all in the Cub Scouts, but Michael loved being a Cub Scout and would often wear his uniform just because. He also loved playing in Robin Hood Hills, and his mom had caught him hiding his muddy clothes under his bed, just like Christopher. He had a 9-year-old sister named Dawn.
Yeah, they were just kids, right? Like
They were just little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really heartbreaking. And in a lot of times when you hear about this story, the 3 8-year-old boys that kind of get missed because the 3 teenagers, their story kind of took over. I think, it's sad for everybody involved. It's a really sad case. But these 3 boys, they definitely almost get overlooked, which is heartbreaking. It's their story, right?
Right.
In the early days of the West Memphis investigation, as fear spread through the small Arkansas community, detectives worked long hours trying to piece together what had happened in Robin Hood Hills. Among them was Detective Bill Durham of the West Memphis Police Department. Durham wasn't the public face of the case. That role belonged to Chief Gary Gitchell. But he was part of the core team working behind the scenes. He assisted with interviews. He was the polygraph administrator and helped process evidence, and later took the stand to testify about the investigation steps. As the case moved from wooded crime scene to courtroom, Durham became one of several officers who would later be scrutinized, and rightly so. Supporters of the West Memphis 3 questioned investigative decisions and evidence handling, while law enforcement maintained they had built a solid case. And look, whether you are on the side of the West Memphis 3 or not, one thing that we can't deny is that this case was handled poorly. And some of it can be accounted for the fact that it was 1993 and they didn't necessarily know, like they didn't have the DNA testing then that they do now. But regardless, they handled this case poorly. There's some things the police did great, absolutely. But there's some very key parts that they screwed up. So whatever side you're on, you can't deny that. In many ways, Durham represented the broader story of the investigation itself. A team of officers convinced that they had solved a brutal crime, and a case that would continue to spark debate for decades. Working alongside West Memphis Police was criminal investigator Brian Ridge of the Crittenden County Sheriff's Department. Ridge became deeply involved in the case as the investigation gained momentum. He was the one who first discovered the bodies of the 3 boys hidden under the water in the creek. He was present during key interviews, including parts with Jessie Misskelly Jr.'s interrogation, a confession that would become central to the prosecution's case. In court, Ridge testified about investigative steps and statements gathered during the critical early days. To law enforcement, the confession reinforced what they believed was a clear direction. To critics, it would later raise troubling questions about interrogation methods and inconsistencies. Like others in the investigation, Ridge stood by the work that was done. But as years passed, the public scrutiny intensified. His role, particularly in relation to the confession, became part of an ongoing debate surrounding the case. At the helm of the investigation was Chief Gary Gitchell of the West Memphis Police Department. As the public face of law enforcement in 1993, Gitchell addressed the media and reassured a shaken community that progress was being made. He was the one who extracted the confession out of Jessie Misskelly and focused the investigation towards the 3 teenagers, Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelly Jr. Gitchell publicly expressed confidence that they had arrested the right suspects, a position he would maintain for years. Which, I mean, as a police chief, you have to, right? Like, you're not going to be like, you know what? Looking back, we fucked up. There's no way. I don't think any police chief is going to admit to that. For supporters of the West Memphis Three, Gitchell represents the authority behind the decisions that shape the entire case. For others, he represents a department responding swiftly and decisively to a horrific crime. This was essentially the last case of his career. Decades later, his name remains closely tied to one of the most debated criminal cases in modern American history.
In the tense weeks following the murders, Sergeant Mike Allen of the West Memphis Police Department became another key figure working the case. Not only was Sergeant Allen the one who pulled the boys' bodies from the water, he also assisted with interviews, evidence gathering, and the coordination of leads as investigators tried to make sense of a crime that had shaken the entire community. Like others on the investigative team, Allen helped build the case that would eventually lead to the arrest of Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelly Jr. His work placed him inside the machinery of an investigation, moving quickly under intense public pressure. Years later, as questions about the case grew louder, Allen's role, along with that of many officers involved, became part of the larger conversation about how the investigation was conducted. Supporters of the West Memphis Three examined every step, while law enforcement maintained they had followed the evidence where it led. As the investigation moved from police work to prosecution, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney John Fogelman became one of the key figures in the courtroom. Representing the state, Fogelman helped present the case against Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelly Jr., working to convince juries that the three teenagers were responsible for the murders. Fogelman focused heavily on Jessie Misskelly's confession, witness testimony, and the prosecution's theory of motive. In a small community desperate for answers, his role was to translate months of investigation into a clear narrative for the jury. But like many parts of the West Memphis Three case, his work would later be revisited and debated. Supporters of the three questioned the evidence presented at trial, while prosecutors, including Fogelman, stood by the convictions and the case they believed had been proven in court. In the story of the West Memphis trials, John Fogelman represents the voice of the state, a prosecutor certain of his case in a courtroom battle that would echo for decades. There will be more people that come up throughout the story, but those are the key ones. Now let's look deeper into who Damien Echols was and why he was targeted as a suspect number one. One of the myths or lore around this case is that the West Memphis Three, in particular Damien, was targeted simply because he wore a lot of black and he listened to Metallica. But that's not entirely true. Yes, they did bring up the fact that Damien wore a lot of black and listened to heavy metal, but the police didn't target them just because of that. They targeted Damien, whether fairly or not, because he was known to police and had a violent incident in his past.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, Damien Echols, he's not a real likable guy. We'll put it that way. He's got a bit of an attitude. He comes across very much as kind of a dick, to be honest. And he lies, and he's kind of an asshole, and he walks around with this intimidating presence. None of that make you a murderer. I'm not saying whether he did or he didn't do it, but you can't say he's guilty based on that fact alone. You can absolutely not like the guy. He's not a very likable guy at all. He does a lot of very shitty things just because you lie.
How old is he?
So he is 18 when he's 17 when the murders happen, and he's 18 when he goes to trial.
Okay.
And he's the type of guy that he wants you to be afraid of him. He wants to come across intimidating, different, because he's just a different guy, right? Like he is intimidating looking. He's a bigger guy, and it's stark because Jessie Misskelly and Jason Baldwin are tiny little dudes. Like they're just short and skinny, and Jason Baldwin looks about 13 years old. Probably same with Jessie Misskelly, and then Damien looks his age. So he comes across very intimidating, but all the young girls love him because he's that bad guy, right? So he's but he's not a likable guy. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh no, he was such a victim. A lot of the trouble he kind of brought upon himself.
I'm
He
gonna Google him. I need to see his.
I was gonna say he comes off as a bad boy.
he does, yeah, very much so. And he says shit for shock value, right? He's gonna say a lot of things that you're gonna be like, well, if he says shit like that, you have to think back to being a teenager, especially if you were a little shit like myself. A lot of the stuff you said were to make yourself look like a badass, but you really didn't do any of that stuff, right? You were like, that's what a lot of the bad kids, they just say shit. And some of the shit they do is shocking, but it doesn't make them a murderer. It doesn't make them necessarily a bad person. They just do shitty things. Did you find him, Sophia?
I did. I'm looking at him now. I don't think he looks that, but
The other thing you have to remember, so this is 1993, and it is,
yeah,
like
they
we
show
said, the Bible Belt, right?
I guess, yeah.
It's
It's different,
very-
right? Because right now seeing someone like that would be normal.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But at the time and in the area, everybody was in church every Sunday, and everyone was they're very
Right.
conservative people, and he stood out because
He's
of
an
the,
author. He's an author, right?
yeah, he's written a couple of books,
Yeah.
and
And like speaks and yeah, like
And he's very charismatic, and he always was. People would hang on to things that he would say,
yeah,
and he spoke quite softly. And so, when you watch him in the documentaries and stuff, he just comes across as he seems like kind of a nice guy. So,
yeah.
but then he'll say some things, and you're like, whoa, it kind of, you're like, you shouldn't have said that. And, right? So it's really hard. I feel like a lot of people just judge him for the shit which of course they do. They judge him for what he says and what he does. Of course you do, right? That's what you're going to be judged on. So he's, like I say, he's brought some of this on himself. He's also interested in a lot of different things, and considering the time and the area, like I said, the
Yeah.
Bible Belt, Wicca, and that kind of stuff, everyone was like, oh my God, the devil.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah,
People are still like that.
for sure. And especially in these small towns, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen Deliverance. This is West Memphis, Arkansas. It was in 1993. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but I mean, you watch the documentary and holy shit, you're like, when the fuck are these people from? And it was just a different place.
Where did you watch the documentary? Oh, it says right here, HBO.
Yeah, I purchased it on Apple TV because
Okay.
I have the patience of a 2-year-old, and if my shit won't come up right away, I'm like, fuck it, just buy it, and then I can watch it. If I'm trying to watch it, I want to watch it now. So
it's not on like Netflix or
no, unfortunately, it used to be years ago.
Damien Echols is the one that is the frontman for the West Memphis 3. If you have seen the documentary Paradise Lost, they focus much of their attention on Damien because he is the one that everybody seems to fear most. The whole town seemed sure it was him. The documentary was directed and produced by Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky, who went to West Memphis in June 1993 with the intention of creating a documentary for HBO about the satanic panic that had seized a small conservative town, anticipating a story about rotten teenagers. 3 8-year-old boys found bound and submerged in a muddy creek in Robin Hood Hills gained national attention, drawing media attention. The filmmakers gained access to the community, including police, grieving parents, and eventually the accused teenagers, the West Memphis 3. Intending to document a river's edge Styles story. While they initially aimed to document the satanic nature of the crime, their focus shifted after witnessing the weak evidence and the atmosphere of a rushed, prejudiced investigation. They were supported by HBO documentaries and spent several months in the area, allowing them to capture the legal proceedings, community reactions, and the subsequent highly controversial trial, which resulted in the 1996 film Paradise Lost, The Child Murders at Robin Hood Hills. Damien Echols was born Michael Wayne Hutchinson on December 11th, 1974. His tumultuous childhood was not easy, constantly moving due to his father's work. Damien learned to enjoy his own company, making few friends due to his transient lifestyle. In 1986, Damien's mother, Pam Hutchinson, and his father, Eddie Joe Hutchinson, split up. This was hard for Damien, especially as they would break up and get back together again a few times over. When his mother remarried, Damien was adopted by her second husband, Jack Echols, and they moved to Echols' home in West Memphis. His search for spiritual truth and meaning, although present at an early age, became a focus of his life at the time. He had attempted for many years to find meaning in Jack Echols' Pentecostal-style church, but with no success. He explored a number of other religions, including Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam, before he discovered Catholicism. For a time, he felt that he had found what he was looking for and was baptized and received communion. But no matter how devoutly he studied, the emptiness continued. It was during this time that he changed his name to Damien, after Father Damien, a 19th century Catholic priest who cared for lepers on the Hawaiian island of Molokai. Even though the rumor mill in West Memphis would report that he had named himself after Damien in the series of Omen movies.
Yeah, they even asked him in trial if he changed his name for the Omen movies. First of all, what does it matter?
It doesn't.
Right? Like, that's just weird. Anyway, by age 15, he had begun to struggle with depression and often isolated himself. The black clothing he wore had become his trademark and included a long black overcoat, which he wore no matter what the weather. Which, honestly, I went to school with a couple of guys that did that. Did you guys?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Like, it was just a thing in the 90s, right? Like,
It was a style.
yeah. His depression continued, and Catholicism was soon discarded and replaced with paganism, which he had discovered after studying Stonehenge and the Druids. On Halloween 1990, Jack Echols adopted both Damien and his little sister, Michelle. This is the day that Damien also changed his name, like we said. And this is why people say he did so because he changed his name on Halloween, but that's the day that his stepdad was adopting him. So he was being adopted on Halloween, and Damien decided while the adoption was going through to change his name. And so because it was Halloween, this is why people say that he changed it, because of the Omen movies, where Damien in the Omen movie, in case you don't know, is the name of the son of Satan. I don't know, there's way better movies that he could have picked to change his name. Just saying. Lucifer. I mean, like, if you're really going for that scare tactic, wouldn't you pick Lucifer?
Right.
Instead of
even like Omen movies, like
they're
who would
old.
even come up with that?
Right?
Like, just randomly off, like out of the millions of horror movies there are,
Exactly.
you just come up with that one at the
Right?
top of your head. Like,
And I mean,
it's so bizarre to me that people would even think that.
right? And there is a horror movie called Michael, where the kid named Michael is the son of Satan.
Yeah.
So why not stick with that?
Yeah.
I don't think the name fucking matters. Like he said, he picked it after Father Damien from Hawaii, and good for him. 1991, Damien and Deanne Holcomb start a relationship. Deanne is 15 at the time and already into the occult. Damien is 16, and he also becomes interested in the occult. Basically, his girlfriend likes it, so then he does too. There again, that's what we do. The two became very close, so much so they swear a suicide pact. Again, dipshit teenagers do stupid shit, right? In 1992, Damien and Jason are with Jessie when he beats up a kid named John Persha. Jessie holds a knife to John's throat and says he is going to kill him. It's unclear what Jason and Damien's involvement was, but there were reports saying they watched from a bridge with other people. So just basically to show there's violence. Also at this time though, especially in Arkansas, people had knives all the time. They just carried knives around. That's just kind of what people did in 1993. Between 1991 and 1993, he attempted to commit suicide a number of times by a variety of methods, including hanging, an overdose, and even drowning. Struggling with mental health issues, he was in and out of the state mental health facilities leading up to the crime. March 3rd, 1992, Damien and Deanne break up. Later, Deanne will start dating Shane Divelsbeck. Damien didn't take the breakup too well, and he definitely didn't take the fact that Deanne was dating Shane well either. Damien became obsessive. Damien threatened to kill Shane and his whole family. One day at school, Damien jumped on Shane's back, and when Shane fell to the floor, Damien tried to claw his eyes out with his fingernails, which had been described as 1.5-inch points, like claws. Some other kids pulled Damien off Shane. Shane said that Damien had a commanding figure and he had control over his friends, that he could look at his friends and immediately silence them. Shane is obviously not a fan of Damien, so you have to take what he said with a grain of salt. But that incident absolutely did happen. And so this, just shows again that he's kind of a dick. He does violent things. He has a temper. He struggles with his mental health, which is not okay. Like, obviously, nobody should jump on the back of someone and try to claw their eyes out. That is horrific.
Yeah.
But it was said a few times that Damien could control his friends' minds, that he could just look at them and they would seem to follow instructions. That's not a thing. Nobody's controlling anyone's mind.
They were just scared of him.
Exactly. Or sometimes you're just good friends with somebody and you can look at them and know what the other person's thinking, but you're not reading their mind. You just know them well enough to know what they're thinking.
On March 6th, Damien told Deanne that he was going to kill her boyfriend, dump his body in her front yard, and burn down her house. Deanne's mom calls the police and Damien is charged with terroristic threatening, but there's no record that anything came of that. Damien is a juvenile, so it's likely that the police arrested him, gave him a warning, and let him go. Despite all that happened, Damien and Deanne got back together. On May 7th, 1992, Arkansas Human Services received an allegation that Damien's little sister Michelle had been sexually abused by Jack Echols since she was 7 years old. At this point, she was 14 years old, so the abuse had occurred for the last 7 years. Jack Echols claimed he may have been overly affectionate with Michelle, but denied the sexual abuse charges. He did admit that he had been charged with exposing himself to his older daughter. Pam doesn't believe the allegations, but Damien had suspected they were true. Pam, Damien and Michelle's mother, was upset by that and said Damien has no respect for others and only wants to bring harm to those around him. But really, Pam didn't want to believe that someone she had married and allowed to adopt her 2 kids had sexually abused her daughter for the last 7 years. So when Damien stands up and supports his sister, Pam turns on Damien. May 19, 1992. Damien is arrested when he and Deanna run away together and break into an abandoned trailer during a rainstorm. Damien is questioned by Jerry Driver, who is a juvenile officer for Critterton County. Detective Driver thought something satanic had been going on in the area and suspects that Damien is involved. Damien tells Detective Driver and another officer that he and Jason are involved in the occult, but that he's not a Satan worshiper, but he worships the Hecate and Diana and describes himself as a gray witch. He tells Detective Driver that there is a group in the county that are Satan worshippers, that the group was extensive and there were 3 or 4 groups in West Memphis itself, that they had reached the end of the animal sacrifice portion to receive power and that the next logical step would be the sacrifice of a human. Damien was charged with breaking and entering and sexual misconduct. This arrest was when Damien first met Jerry Driver, Chief Juvenile Probation Officer for Critterton County and partner of Steve Jones, According to Damien, in a later interview, Driver had been convinced that satanic cults were behind many criminal activities in the area and was determined to prove his theories. Driver would investigate Damien in regard to a variety of unsolved crimes in the area, none of which he was able to pin on Damien.
Another myth about this case was that Jerry Driver was obsessed with the occult and with Damien and devil worship, and all of that was for no reason. But in truth, Damien was stirring this up and feeding it to Detective Driver, most likely just being a shithead teenager and messing with the cops. But Damien is telling Detective Driver this elaborate story about this and creating this narrative, and the satanic panic was still in swing. Detective Driver would spend a lot of time, most of 1992, looking for a satanic movement underway in West Memphis. He would actually drive around late at night looking for signs of the occult. May 27th, 1992, the divorce between Pam and Jack Echols was finalized and Jack moved out. June 1st, 1992, Damien was admitted to Charter Hospital in Mamel, a mental health facility affiliated with the East Arkansas Medical Health Center, as part of his condition of the arrest when he and Deanne broke into the trailer. During his stay there, he was diagnosed as manic depressive and was prescribed the antidepressant drug Trophanol, which he continued to take until he arrived on death row. He was released on June 25th when his family decided to move to Oregon. He had told the doctors in the mental health facility that he found a release when fighting in school, that he only had one friend. Damien took the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory Clinical Report, which reports state that his score on the test is associated with severe emotional disturbance. Individuals with this profile type often give evidence of a schizophrenic thought disorder and paranoid mentation. When Damien takes an IQ test, he scores a 101. 100 is considered average. His evaluation, however, states he appears to have weak imaginative resources and is lacking aliveness and productive energy for his life.
Which is awful for a doctor to say about someone, right? To have a weak imagination, that's fair. Not everybody is imaginative. But to say he's lacking aliveness, what exactly is the medical, the psychological reasoning behind that? Like, clarify, doctor. Like, what do you mean? Like, he's walking around like a zombie? Like, is that what you're trying to say? Like, it just, I don't know.
Probably just has like zero fucks given.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's what they come up with, right? It's
like, I mean, he's going through a lot, right? Like they're very poor. They're living in a trailer park. His mom is with his dad, then not with his dad, then with his dad, then not with his dad, then marries another guy, and then breaks up with him, and then gets back together with him, and he's molesting his little sister. This whole time, he's going through like fights at school and doesn't have very many friends, and he no shit, he doesn't give a fuck, Like I don't know. I kind of think sometimes it's one of those things when everybody thinks that you're a certain way, you just become that way. If everyone thinks you're weird, you just embrace it and become weird. You can't help but feel bad on some level for him, even though he doesn't help himself when he stirs shit and is violent and stuff. But on the other side of that, this is 1993, and his mom is trying to get mental health help for him as well, right? So to clarify, when he got arrested and he was charged with sexual misconduct, it was basically his girlfriend was under the age of consent. He didn't actually, he didn't rape her or any, she was consenting. She just wasn't old enough actually to consent. But if I'm correct, she was 15 and he was 16. So it sounds a lot worse than it is. A lot of 15-year-olds date 16-year-olds. I was 16 and got married to an 18-year-old. So, I don't think that 1 year difference is a big deal, to be honest. I think if he was 22 and she was 12, like the Jasmine Richardson situation, Jeremy Steinke,
right,
that's not okay. But 15 and 16, I don't know. I think her parents were basically, they blamed it on him when she was just as guilty. So So September 2nd, 1992, Damien was admitted into St. Vincent Hospital in Oregon due to concerns he is suicidal. He had locked himself in a closet with a knife or possibly a spoon. His grandma wasn't sure. His parents were also concerned about his, quote, Satanism. His mom labels it Satanism, but Damien denies any involvement in it. However, you look at these incidents, the parents seem like they are seeking help because they don't know how to deal with Damien and his mental health, which, if you don't know how to deal with it, seeking help is the best thing, right? Which, considering that it's 1992 and they are not only acknowledging that he has mental health issues, but they are trying to get him help too, is amazing. There was still a lot of denial and lack of understanding about mental health at that time. Unfortunately, Damien was only at the hospital for 2 days, so the doctors most likely didn't take the suicide attempt that seriously. After being discharged, after only 2 days, his family no longer wanted him to live with them, so they sent him back to Arkansas. Remember, he's still only 17 at this point. And on one hand, his parents are trying to get help for him with his mental health issues. Then on the other, they decide they don't want to deal with him anymore, so they put him on a bus by himself all the way from Oregon to Arkansas, which is 2,052 miles, or for us Canadians, 0.374 kilometers, which is a 29-hour and 46-minute direct drive, but a 92-hour and 40-minute bus ride. Fuck me. Could you imagine being on a fucking bus for 92 hours and 40 minutes? I couldn't imagine being on a bus for 40 minutes, let alone
exactly.
the fucking 92 hours. My God. What the fuck do you do? Oh my God. Especially in 92. It's not like you can play on your phone.
Right.
You'd have to bring a lot of books. I can't, it stresses me out just thinking about it. No thanks. By returning to Arkansas, he violated his probation and Jerry Driver arrested him. So basically Jerry Driver was waiting at the bus stop and that's who picked him up. It was Damien's mom, Pam, who called Jerry Driver to tell him Damien was returning to Arkansas. Dick move, Mom.
So she set him up. So she sent him there and then told the detective that.
Yep. Yeah, just a heads up, Mr.
Nice
Driver, my son is
nice.
Right, like.
Yeah, even though I forced him to go at 17 years old.
Like I kicked him out. Let's be clear on that. I kicked out my son because I didn't know what to do with him. He
clearly paid for his bus ticket because he didn't have money to buy it himself.
Right.
Threw him on the bus, said goodbye, and then went and ratted him out.
What a cunt.
Right?
It's easy to forget stuff like this when you look at Damien and you're like, well, you're a dick and you do all these things and stuff. He hasn't had it easy, I don't think. Like, it's not been the worst. There's lots of people that have had it way worse than him, for sure. But we all walk our own path, and his path has been pretty shitty so far. Mm-hmm. He was sent to a detention center, and while there, he supposedly sucked the blood of a fellow inmate while rubbing his blood all over his face. So he was then sent to a mental health facility. He spends 2 weeks in that facility before being released to his adoptive father, Jack Echols. Damien promises not to harm anyone else. But I mean, realistically, unless he made the cut to suck the guy's blood, he didn't harm him. I mean, unless the guy was like, no, don't suck my blood. But like, I don't know. Like, I mean, is it weird? Fuck yeah, it's weird. Is it a scare tactic or just him being, look how weird I am? Like, who knows, right? People do weird shit, man.
January 5th, 1993, the mental health facility reopened Damien's case. When interviewed by a psychologist, he says all his problems started when his parents first got divorced, when he was 8 years old. He talked about how he feels he has no power in his life and no control over his life. He also said when he dies, he wants to, quote, go where the monsters go. The world is divided into sheep and wolves eat the sheep. He says he pretty much hates the human race. Damien describes abuse he's suffered and says he just pushes it all inside and describes anger simmering inside him as rage. He says the rage causes him to blow up, and when that happens, the only solution is for him to hurt someone. He says he has been told that he could be the next Charles Manson or Ted Bundy. He says that people will remember him. I'd be curious to know who told him he would be the next Manson or Bundy. Is it just kids, his friends, or adults? I think it would make a difference. Or if that was something he made up. He seems to like the image of being a scary guy, wearing mostly black and rock band t-shirts and a trench coat. It was just his style, like so many had at that time. Maybe this is all part of his persona. He definitely has had a tough life. He's moved around a lot. His mom has had on again, off again relationships with his father and his stepfather. They didn't have a financially secure home. He wasn't like all the other kids. He didn't have many friends, and he's made fun of. And on top of all of that, he has mental health issues. His files talk about how, in order to protect himself from all the bad stuff coming at him, he becomes the aggressor. That's how he prevents himself from getting hurt. He also didn't do himself any favors by telling the police on multiple occasions when being questioned about Satanism books that he had read about devil worshipping, that he was a follower of Wicca, a modern pagan religion that often involves the worship of a goddess and a god, and that he was a white witch, a group that focused on achieving a divine light, and that his necklace with a pentagram pendant represented a positive symbol for his practice. The tattoo on his chest, he said, was a symbol representing the elements and balance, earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, and that it was connected to Wicca, or ceremonial magic. To him, it represented harmony, protection, and the human connection to the divine. At another treatment session on January 25th, Damien talks about rituals, drinking blood, and his increased interest about demonology. He says that drinking the blood of others gives him power and, quote, makes him feel like a god. He also says the spirit of a woman murdered by her boyfriend entered his body about a year ago, and it's decided to become a part of him, and it gives him knowledge that others would not have. He says he cannot see the spirit, but he can hear it, and he also reports speaking with demons and other spirits. This is what he is telling his doctors 4 months before the murders had happened.
I mean, that's not great.
No, that's not good.
But in all honesty, I don't know how much I would take seriously.
Right. Like, is he fucking with them? Or
I think
is he
so.
being serious? Right? 'Cause
I think
maybe he's like, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna mess with these guys.
that's
But
what I think it is, in all honesty. I don't doubt that he likes the Wicca and
like,
that
did he
kind of
write
stuff.
a book or something? Like, what does he say?
So I think it's from like Anton LaVey and Aleister Crowley. They have wrote books on like Satanism and stuff like that, which he has claimed that he hasn't read, but he also does say a lot of the stuff that are in the book. So I think he's read the books. A lot of people read the books. I think he just has got, like, he likes Wicca. I think he's read those books, and I think he just says shit because he's bored. And I think because he's just playing into
But
this.
he has, like, all these years later, he hasn't said anything about this. Like about the things that he has said. He hasn't, like,
he said, yeah, oh yeah, he said
serious, or yes, I am being serious.
Yeah,
or...
he's come out and said that, like, he said a lot of shit. He said a lot of things he shouldn't have said, and he did a lot of things he shouldn't have done. And I'm pretty sure he's referring to.
Right.
I don't want to misquote him. I have read his book, and it's been a little while, and I've just read a whole bunch of other books on top of that one, so I don't want to misquote him or anything, but I believe, I'll find out if this is right, but I believe that he has basically said he talked a lot of shit. So,
okay.
Honestly, like, there again, I think because mixed in with the mental health stuff, like, I think he just says shit, whether it's stuff that he's read or whatever. Go ahead, Cash.
I think he just says shit because he knows he's going to get in shit for it anyway. So why?
Yeah, right. And I think he likes the reactions. You know, I remember being sent to the school psychologist more than once and playing into it because when I would tell them the truth, when I'm like, I'm just bored. I just, home life sucks. I'm just bored. They didn't believe me. So I would just play into it. And I think that's all he's doing is just telling them what they want to hear. They want to hear he's crazy, so he's telling them he's crazy, basically.
Right.
That's all I think it is.
February 1993, 3 months before the murders, a man dressed in black pulls into the driveway of Christopher Byers' house in a green car. He gets out of the car and takes a picture of Christopher. At the time, his parents were not home. When his parents came home, Christopher told them what happened. It's not known who this man was. In March of 1993, Damien's parents and sister moved back to Arkansas. Because Damien and his sister had already missed so much school, they were not going to be registered again till the new year, starting in September. Jennifer Ball made the following statement to police. The first contact I had with Damien Echols was when he was at my window on March 1st, 1993. I had heard about him and heard that he was into devil worshipping. So was Michael and Amanda Lancaster. Well, Michael had told her while he was going to blow my house up and stay away from me. Well, she didn't believe him and we continued to be friends. Well, he called her one day and told her to watch out that he had Mark Bashirs and Damien Echols watching us all. This was happening in March. About March 1st, I was on a three-way with Amanda Lancaster and Jack Held. It was storming that day. I kept on hearing something, but thought it was just the rain. Well, I was looking out the window and somebody jumped in front of it shouting, "You bitch, I'll get you. I'm gonna kill you. You're gonna die." I started screaming and hollering. I didn't know what to do. I dropped down in the corner of the kitchen. Amanda was hollering at me, "Jennifer, what is wrong? Jennifer, what is going on?" I told her that someone was at my window and it looked like Damien. She told me to stay where I was and she was going to call me right back. I hung up the phone. I looked out the window to see if he was still there. He was. He just glared at me and said, "You're dead, bitch," and ran off. I was so scared. Amanda called me back and I was crying. I told her what Damien had said. She just sat there like, oh my God. About 5 minutes later, she said, Jennifer, was Damien wearing pure black and a black trench coat?" I said, "Yes, why?" She said, "He's walking down the street and eyeing my house." She got really scared and started crying, and then her house alarm went off. She was screaming and crying. I didn't know what to do. I had a feeling that Damien was going to be watching us and after us. When my mom, Teresa Woodson, got home from work that day, I told her what happened. She didn't know what to do. She waited for my stepdad, Don Woodson, to get home. She told him about it. He really didn't know what to do either. Me and my mom were talking and she asked me to describe Damien. I told her that he had black hair and these eyes that looked black. He was dressed in a black shirt, black jeans, and a black trench coat. She asked me if he was tall. I told her yes. She said she remembers seeing him in Walmart. This was about 10 minutes after he had done passed by Amanda's house and came up to mine. She decided to call the police. Officer Reese came to our house. She asked me to describe Damien. I did. Officer Reese asked me if I was sure it was Damien. I told her no.
I mean, honestly, first of all, Mom, when your kid tells you that this happened,
right?
Here's PSA, you call the fucking cops. What do you mean you don't know what to do, so you waited for your stepdad? But also the fact, like, kid, why didn't you call the cops? Yeah. Why didn't you, like, you're home by yourself. Why didn't you call the cops? If someone's screaming at you, you're gonna die. Call the fucking cops, right?
Yeah.
I actually don't think this happened. I think that this guy told him, "I'm going to set Damien after you." Damien walked everywhere. That was something he liked to do. He just walked all over all the time because there's nothing else to fucking do in West Memphis in Arkansas in 1993. And I think they happened to look out the house, out the window, and Damien passed by. And he was known to wear all black and always wearing a trench coat. So, you know, how much truth you can take out of this, I don't know. I'm not saying it didn't happen. Damien is known to do stupid shit, so who knows? There was never any physical evidence or corroborating proof that Damien Echols threatened Jennifer Ball or was outside her window. Police reports from the incident described suspect B, identified in discussions as not being Michael Bashir, whom she first suspected, as a slim white male about 18 wearing a black t-shirt, black jeans, and black jacket. Despite the timing of the report, no physical evidence such as footprints or fingerprints linked to Damien Echols to that incident. The allegations surrounding the window incident was one of many rumors circulating due to the satanic panic atmosphere of the time, rather than a proven fact. Just keep in mind, the whole town had kind of gone batshit. Rightly so, I guess, like there's that fear, but just keep that in mind. So the police interviewed a lot of people. The problem was they interviewed them after the 3 teens had been arrested. And after they were arrested, everyone had a story about Damien, following them or threatening them. Damien was well known around town to be odd and aggressive at times. They even talked about the fact that he walked everywhere was creepy. Like, he's just walking. How is that creepy? He doesn't have a car. He doesn't ride a bike. Like, how else do you get from A to B, right? Like, so it's hard to know which story to believe when there are so many people telling stories about Damien, especially when they were talking about hearing him in their minds or him controlling people's minds. There were people saying they believed they would be Damien's next victim and that he needed to kill a certain number of victims so he could become a god. So many stories circulated around, growing wilder. March 12th, 1993, Jessie Misskelly is accused of punching a 13-year-old girl named Tiffany Allen in the face at a park in West Memphis. Misskelly had apparently bragged to his friends that he had had sex with her. She denied it and slapped Jessie. She ran and Jessie chased after her and punched her in the face. So this actually totally happened, which again, this doesn't look great, right? But punching somebody in the face doesn't necessarily escalate to murder. That's a big jump, right? On May 1st, Jason traded some shirts with Kenny Newell for a knife and a mountain climbing pack. Kenny said a week later, Jason sent his brother Matthew back to Kenny to trade back the knife. Matthew told Kenny that Jason said they are trying to blame me for using it or something. This would be 3 or 4 days after the murders. We don't know if this is true or not, but it is a report in the file. Tuesday, May 4th, the day before the murders, Damien's mom, Pamela, and his dad, Eddie Joe, separated. Eddie had wanted Jack Echols to not have anything to do with his children, Damien and Michelle, but Pamela said she wouldn't agree to that, so Eddie leaves. Damien was so upset that he cried throughout the day. Pamela and Eddie had abandoned them once before, and now he was doing it all over again. By 9 p.m. that night, Eddie was completely moved out. Pam would first tell this story on May 12th, but months later would say the separation happened on May 9th. I mean, really, how do they remember the date? They're together and then they're not together. They're together. They're like, you can't keep up. This brings us to the day of the murders. Okay, so we're going to stop here for now. And then next week, we're going to go through the timeline of the day of the murders and see how far we get. So that's episode 1. We are looking at 13 plus episodes. So stay with us. It's going to be a long one, but honestly, it's definitely worth it. It's going to be a long one. There's so much. I don't feel like any of them should be cut out. So I don't know. Yeah. It's a really fascinating case.
I don't really want to leave anything out, right?
That's just it.
Like I don't want to pick it apart and be like, oh, we don't talk about, you know what I mean? Like if it's part of the story, right?
Yeah. And there is, like, obviously there is some stuff we're gonna leave out.
Yeah.
Because if we cover everything, we're looking at like a 40 episode long series. This is our year of West Memphis 3. So I guess, I don't know, we'll see where we get to. But I don't think there's anything that I've left out so far that's like a significant part, I guess.
Right.
Like some of it is just going to be a lot of he said, she said. Like there's a lot of stories that people in the area are going to tell. Some are significant, some are not. So that's it for Moms on Mics this week.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Moms on Mics Podcast, on TikTok at Moms on Mics, and join our Facebook group, Moms on Mics.
If anyone has any topics you would like us to cover, or if you have any questions or suggestions, you can email us at momsonmics@gmail.com or submit through our website, momsonmics.com.
We would also appreciate it if you could rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening on. It really helps the podcast move up on their charts so it gets more exposure. hope you join us again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.